I actually have an interesting problem right now, which is the opposite of my normal problem. The problem is I have too many video ideas and I couldn't pick one to talk about. So I literally rolled a virtual dice to pick one to talk about. And we're going to be talking about Counter-Strike. I love Counter-Strike, big fan of Counter-Strike, Global Offensive. I have like 2,300 something, 400 hours, something like that, which I know is not that much compared to like people who are really, really into the game, but it's definitely by far my most played game, like by thousands of hours, my most played game. I don't really play any other games, in fact, but I've been playing a bit recently. I just sort of wanted to talk about why I like Counter-Strike so much, specifically, mostly because of a phrase that my good friend Dotesmite said to me, which is that I like video games that are like a skill toy. And so it sort of made me think about like what is the actual appeal of the way I play Counter-Strike, and why do I play Counter-Strike so fucking weirdly? Because, you know, if you talk to most people who are really into CS, they kind of hate the game. Like there's a lot of, if you go on like r/CS:GO and like the Reddits and people like that, they talk a lot about how the game makes them rage and stuff like that. And that used to happen to me back in the day when I first was playing Counter-Strike. In fact, that's why I quit for like a year. I didn't play Counter-Strike because it was just making me angry when I was playing. Because if I had to put it in a way, it's kind of like speedrunners. What's his name? Average Trade did a video about this, I think, called Why Speedrunners Hate Their Runs or something like that, where whenever you're watching like high-class speedrunners, even when they're on world record pace, they say stuff like, oh, this run is trash, this run is so bad, even when they get world records. People will get a world record and say this run is trash, because for some reason, like, there's a mentality that you, like, the standard, that like the standard is perfection. Like if you do anything less than perfection, it's like you fucked up, because that's how it works with these sorts of skill-based games like speedrunning. Like if you don't hit a trick first try, there's no one else to blame other than yourself, and you know you can do it. So you have this sort of standard of like what a perfect run should look like, and then if you get it, even if you do really well, like getting a world record or something, you get down on yourself. And CS is the same sort of thing where it's like if you miss a shot, it's because you fucked up. There's no other excuse. I mean, people will always make excuses, but deep down, everyone knows it's because they fucked up, and it kind of makes you really mad, you know, if you're really trying. But I stopped really trying after that thing, and my attitude to CS really changed. And so I want to talk about the history of a few things which I think influence the way that I play Counter-Strike. If you want to know the way that I play Counter-Strike, I only play Nuke. I'm the most obnoxious person in the world, essentially. I only play Nuke, and I just basically do the same routes every round, just rush every round, trying to hit ridiculous shots and do tricks and stuff, and trick shots. Although not that often do I actually try and do trick shots. But, you know, if I want to just sum it up in a quick sentence, if you know what I'm talking about, then I'd say I'm a movement player, right? I like a movement play style, which is why I play Nuke. If you know Counter-Strike, you know what I'm talking about. Don't worry, I'll explain more. If you don't know anything about Counter-Strike or what the fuck I'm talking about, I will explain in more detail. If you need more explanation, that'll be coming up later in this very video, right here on the No Thank You channel. Subscribe. So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, yeah. I would say I'm like maybe like mediocre, mid-tier, well, intermediate skill at movement in Counter-Strike. That's how I would describe myself. So why do I play like that? Why not just play like how a normal person, like, you know, doing Mirage 24/7, peeking angles properly, playing with a team, playing Face It or ESE or something like. Why don't I do that? Well, to do this we have to go back to my childhood, as with most things. You see, when I grew up I was never really allowed video games. Go watch the first video on this channel called I'm Not Very Good at Video Games or something like that, for more details about that. I wasn't really allowed to play video games, and blah blah blah. I'm not very good at games, but I was really into skill toys. So a skill toy is sort of a toy or something like that where the game of the toy is to practice and learn new skills. So the typical example is yo-yoing. I would say a better example is skateboarding, but I don't, that's kind of like, where, is it a sport, is it a toy, like, I don't know, but skateboarding is a pretty good example of that sort of thing, where it's like, the fun of skateboarding comes from learning new skills and getting better and learning new tricks and stuff, and it's partially about showing off to your friends, but it's also partially just about learning the skills because that's the fun of it. My skill of choice was cardistry. If you don't know what cardistry is, it's sort of this subsection thing which sort of grew out of Magic, where you do fancy stuff with a deck of cards. Right? It's you're just flourishing is another word for it. Card flourishing. That was my skill toy of choice, but I've also picked up many other skill toys over the years. So the first one I was into is this kind of obscure one, which I got into just like, I'm gonna drop these. This is stupid. No one's whatever. It doesn't matter. No one messages me ever until I'm recording a video, and I always forget to put my phone on silent. Okay, so my first skill toy was this thing called a Miyachi, which no one knows about, and you shouldn't because it's not a very good skill toy, but it's basically, imagine a hacky sack for your hands. You use the back of your hands to do tricks with it. It's very stupid, and it looks very silly, but I was into that for a while. I've been into pen spinning, I've been into Begleri, I've been into kendama. I'll have a kendama somewhere around here. Can't always find it. Yo-yo I even picked up briefly. So all of these sorts of things I was into. And then at a certain point I discovered speedrunning. This is probably maybe 2015-ish, I would say. I was watching GDQ. Just having discovered what speedrunning was, I was watching some like GDQ things, and I saw Half-Life 1 speedrun. And it looked really fucking cool because it's a Half-Life 1 speedrun, and if you've ever seen the speedrun for Half-Life 1, I'd say it's one of the better speedruns. And that was my bell, so I've got to go answer that. So yeah, I saw this Half-Life 1 speedrun, and I was like, I want to do that. Because I'd always been really into the sort of Half-Life Portal franchise, despite never having actually played the games. In the very earliest years of my YouTube experience, I used to watch videos, we're talking 2010 maybe, I don't know, maybe even sooner than that, but some early sort of gaming lore type of videos where people would explain. I was really excited by the fact that Half-Life and Portal were in the same universe, and like all the little details of how they're connected, and that was fascinating to me as a young kid. And so I was interested in Portal lore and Half-Life lore, even though I really never more Portal than Half-Life, but I was interested in the whole thing. And so seeing this Half-Life thing, which I already had some experience with, plus the really good speed run, because it's a really cool run, and movement, Bhopping, skill-based movement, that was a whole novel thing to me. I was like, I want to pick that up. So I started speedrunning Half-Life 1. And let me tell you, speedrunning, it's not fucking easy. Half-Life is not an easy game to play casually, let alone speedrun. I had never, at this point, when I picked it up, I'd never played a Half-Life game. I'd never played Half-Life at all. I'd never played Half-Life 1. Like, I was just like, yeah, instead of learning to play this game, I'll just pick it up, speedrun it, and it'll be easy. It was not easy. I literally finished like 2 runs ever, and it would take me like 2 hours to do a run. Like, I would be good. I got pretty good, not actually pretty good on a standard of how good people actually are at speedrun, but comparatively, compared to my normal skill at things, having never really played much first-person shooters at all at that time on PC, I got decent at the first little section of Half-Life 1, like maybe the first 3 chapters of Half-Life 1, which is, so in the, not counting the very intro chapter, the first real chapter where there's actual gameplay after the Resonance Cascade, or actually, technically it starts during the Resonance Cascade in the speedrun. There's a trick you do to skip like a section of the Resonance Cascade cutscene and skip forward into a particular area of the game. So you skip a section is basically the point. It's different now. The way they do it nowadays in speedruns, they do a prop launch, which is just a particular speedrunning trick. Back in the day, you used to spawn a Vortigaunt in a particular place and then b-hop off of the Vortigaunt's head to get up to a ledge where you could then be loaded into a different chapter. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's basically the gist of it. And I got pretty, like, that was the first speedrunning trick that I ever tried and practiced and watched myself get more consistent at, to the point where I could do it maybe every other time, like 1 and 2 times. And that was really fun. And then from there, the first few chapters I got decent, passable at. But yeah, it was too fucking hard. The run is already, like, it's not that long. It's like 30 to 40 minutes. It's probably about 40 minutes at my skill level if I'd actually tried really hard at that time. Yeah, no, it would take me way too long, and it got to the point where I was practicing every day and really making very little improvements because I didn't know how to practice very well back then. Instead of actually practicing sections like you should do with a speed run, I would just practice whole runs from the very beginning. So I got very good at the beginning of the game and barely ever had runs that made it towards the end section of the games, and so I never practiced them very much, which is not how you do practice speedruns. So I got to the point where after a few months of this, I was like, look, if I don't get like a decent run, like anything that I consider to be a decent run, so no deaths would essentially be what I would consider a decent run. If I got a decent run, if I don't get a decent run by the end of this year, which was at the time, it was the beginning of December, so if I don't get a decent run by the end of this December, like end of this month, then I will stop running. And I didn't get even though I tried every day to get a decent run, I didn't, because it's a fucking hard game to speedrun. There's a reason it looks so skillful when you see high-level players running Half-Life. It's because it takes a lot of fucking skill. But out of that whole experience, I did learn to b-hop reasonably well. I learned to bunny hop pretty well and sort of fell in love with bunny hopping as a movement mechanic. And so, when I discovered Counter-Strike, it was kind of natural to me that I would want to learn to b-hop in Counter-Strike, and I already had the basic motion and skill, even though feels a little different, CS versus Half-Life 1, the b-hopping feels different. It's the same basic mechanic. I mean, at the end of the day, it's pretty much still the same engine, so, whatever. And the second, so that's one thing, is me going from skill toys, learning through speedrunning, and then getting into Counter-Strike. I speedrun various games after that. Maybe I'll make a whole video about my speedrunning career. But, then on the other side, you've got how I actually got into Counter-Strike, which is the same way I got into Minecraft, which is, I watched a lot of YouTube videos about it before I ever touched the game. I got into the YouTube scene before I ever played the game. I think a lot of people played Minecraft like this, so I watched Yogscast for like a year before I ever touched Minecraft. And the main YouTubers I used to watch before I got into CSGO actually playing it, was these 3 YouTubers, one of whom is Nick Bunyan, who, looking back, is pretty trash, and I don't really know why I watched his videos, because I don't think I ever really enjoyed his videos that much. But yeah, I used to watch his videos for some weird reason. But his videos were mostly like highlights where he would hit cool shots, basically, in the game. Then, this guy called Sparkles. So, I don't know if Sparkles still makes Counter-Strike videos, I have no idea, but back in the day, he used to have these series where people would send him in clips of their games, and he would compile them into a YouTube video where you were seeing people's cool clips that they had sent him. And it was focused mostly on a particular type of thing called a ninja defuse. So in Counter-Strike, Counter-Strike's the main competitive game. Counter-Strike is a competitive, goal-based. There's a goal win state. So you can win either by killing all the other team, 5v5, or by planting. So there's 2 sides. One is terrorists, Ts, one is counter-terrorists, CTs. So if you're a terrorist, your goal is to plant the bomb at one of 2 bomb sites on the map. So you have to take the bomb site, plant the bomb, and then once the bomb is planted, a timer will start, and then you want to try and defend the bomb until the timer goes off, and if the bomb explodes, the terrorists win. As CTs, you want to defend the bomb sites from the terrorists, and if the terrorists manage to plant, you want to defuse the bomb, which means sitting on the bomb, holding down E for 5 to 10 seconds, depending on whether you bought a defuse kit or not, to defuse the bomb. And if you defuse the bomb, CTs win. Now, normally this involves you're not going to be able to really defuse the bomb unless you've killed everyone, because as a T, you can very easily defend the bomb because while you're defusing, you can't shoot, you can't do anything. You just have to sit there staring at the bomb for 5 seconds. And so the idea is that you should probably have to kill all the T's before you can defuse. But a ninja defuse is a way to win a round where what you do is hide on the bomb site in a little corner somewhere sneakily, so that the T's don't notice you. Then they'll plant the bomb somewhere, and then after they've planted, you, without them noticing, like a ninja, defuse the bomb. This is very difficult for various reasons. Firstly, the bomb sites in CS are quite minimal. There aren't really that many little cubby holes to hide in, and your model stands out pretty well, so it's hard to hide, and it's particularly hard to hide while defusing the bomb, because generally bombs will be planted out in the open, so they're easy to defend, and also you make a noise when you start to defuse. It makes a noise that's easy to hear. So a lot of times what this would involve is throwing a smoke grenade on top of yourself so that they can't see you while you're defusing. And that's the general principle behind a ninja defuse. It's sort of an impressive flex type of situation because it's very hard to pull off a defuse where the enemy team doesn't notice you. And so this is what these Sparkles videos were about, people who would ninja defuse in Counter-Strike. Now, ninja defusing doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. Like, it seems like, I think people just got too good at the game, that hiding on a bomb site doesn't work anymore because people actually check their bomb sites and check the corners. And a lot of maps that used to have ninja spots, so like good spots to hide in, have been updated since then, and those spots are no longer as powerful as they used to be, so either you stand out more or they do various things. I think people got better at shooting through smokes as well, like people are better at knowing where someone is just through game sense when someone's hiding in a smoke. Either way, it seems like ninja diffusers kind of died as a thing, like no one does them anymore. But back in the day, it was a very big sort of trend. I would compare it a little bit to Call of Duty Trickshot videos. Not really, because those are a bit more epic, whereas Ninja Diffuse is more like, look at this guy being super sneaky, which is very Counter-Strike. It's more like Star Trek than Star Wars. It's more about being sneaky and stuff like that. So Ninja Diffuse videos from Sparkles were really cool to me, because it's about, theoretically, outsmarting the enemy team, hiding on the site, and then diffusing without them noticing. It's very funny because you can imagine how shocked the enemy team is if they have no idea, and then suddenly counter-terrorists win out of nowhere. Bomb has been defused, counter-terrorists, and then the team's been, what the fuck? How did he do that? You know, I can imagine that on their faces, and so it's very amusing to watch these videos. Which means, when I started playing CSGO, there was a while where all I did was try and go for ninja diffusers, which I'm sure was incredibly annoying to all of my teammates, because if you're just hiding on a bomb site, you're not helping anyone. So yeah, I would just go for ninjas. And amazingly enough, despite me having very little skill at the game, that is one thing I could do. Because really, it doesn't take much skill, it's very exciting. Because when you're hiding on the bomb site, and people are running past you, not seeing you, and you know they're standing right next to you, and if they turned around, you'd be fucked. Like, and then diffusing, and knowing that, like, it's a very exhilarating, like, adrenaline pumping type of situation. So I used to try and go for those, and I got a surprising amount of ninjas back in the day. Even some pretty good ones. Like, I remember specifically, my best one ever was, there's no really point describing it because it doesn't sound that cool describing it, but essentially one on Dust 2, where I had done an air strafe jump around the outside of bombsite A. Like, bombsite A is a raised platform, and I heard one of the T's was about to come find me, and so I like perfectly airstrafe jumped so that he didn't quite see me and then defused the bomb. It was very impressive. Or I thought so anyway. It wasn't that impressive probably. But that's one of the things I started to do. Not just playing the game normally, but because I was really into these Sparkles videos, I was playing to get ninja diffusers. And then the third series that was very influential for me with Counter-Strike is 3Clicks Phillips series Going Low in CSGO, which out of all of these things I've talked about is the one that holds up the best and is still a really good series to watch, and I definitely recommend it. So the idea of his series was CSGO has a ranking system, much like League of Legends or something, where you can go up in rank and up to from silver to all the way up till global elite is the highest rank. And most people generally play the game with the aim to rank up, to get into a higher skill level. Whereas Philip here said to himself, what if I do the opposite? What if I take my account and just try and get to the lowest rank possible, but without just without just throwing. Like, I want to do something interesting every game, but still D rank and try and hit Silver 1, the lowest rank, going low in CSGO. And it's a fucking great series. Like, he might, for example, here's a game where he has to only use a knife, and he goes around only using a knife, which obviously puts him at a big disadvantage. Or here's a game where he actually tries to befriend the other team by throwing them weapons and giving them, like, he does a bunch of really clever stuff like this. And after a while, he started doing it with friends, so it's not just him ruining a game for a bunch of random people, you know, he's with his friends, and so it's not that. But also back then, CS was just less competitive in general. Like, people wouldn't have cared. People didn't care that much that I went for ninjas all the time. People didn't care that much that he was going low in CSGO. Whereas now, if you do that sort of thing, people will get really mad at you because people take the game way too seriously. Thank you, Valve, for adding unranked matchmaking, so at least theoretically that doesn't happen anymore, except it kind of still does. So yeah, and that immediately woke up the idea in me that, oh, there's no rule saying that I have to try and rank up. There's no rule saying, like, oh, this is the way you're supposed to play the game is blah, blah, blah. But that's only what you're supposed to do. There's no actual mechanic that forces you to play that way. You can just play like a retard and completely ignore the rank system and have fun if you want to by doing silly things like ninja diffuses. And so that's how I learned to play the game. That's the way I learned to have fun in the game, and that's how I do it to this day. And then, much later, I kind of figured out that after watching some pro videos of people doing interesting movement on Nuke, I figured out that Nuke was probably a good map to do movement on, but I would play like mostly Nuke, but not only Nuke. And then I started watching Franz J videos, and this is probably cringe to a lot of people, but Franz J I still think is a pretty great YouTuber. He makes funny, Counter-Strike funny Trickshot videos. They're kind of like the next evolution of like Trickshot videos, where they're kind of a combination of, like, imagine a meme compilation crossed with a funny moments crossed with a Trickshot video. They're kind of all three in one. I think it's a very good formula for videos. But I watched him, and then I was like, oh, this is who I am. This is who the fuck I am. I'm a retard. And so I was then I was just like, from then on, only Nuke, only trick shots. Except that's not true. I actually don't go for trick shots that much. I did sometimes, but I'm more interested in just doing fun movement rather than trick shots or impressive stuff. Because, like, the thing with trick shots in CSGO, like no scopes and stuff, is that it's completely luck based. Like, there is no skill involved in it. It's just, will the random number generator at the end of my gun decide that the bullet goes this way? And it most of the time doesn't, because the game isn't designed to de-incentivize people no-scoping, because it lowers the skill ceiling if you can no-scope very easily, and Counter-Strike is designed to have a very high skill ceiling, so no-scoping is extremely nerfed. It feels like some days you'll just get lucky and some days you won't, but it's all luck. Like, there is no skill involved, and it doesn't feel good to do something perfect and then just have the RNG gods just be like, nah, you're not going to hit the no-scope. But on the other hand, it means that when you do hit one, you feel like hell yeah. So yeah, I don't know, I play like a retard. That's all I'm trying to say. If anyone wants to play with me, if anyone wants to play Counter-Strike with me, because I'm trying to D-rank right now, but I'm too good. I'm too good at the game, and I suck at convincing myself to play badly. So I'm D-ranking. Like, I'm trying to D-rank without going into a D-rank group, because I did it before, and it's just really, you just have to, it's stupid. I've tried to do D-rank groups before, and it's really annoying having to actually organize a 5-man, and it sucks. So if anyone wants to play with me, so I don't get kicked, and wants to fuck around in Counter-Strike with me, I'm not actually that good at the game. I'm just good for my rank, because my rank is too low because I play like a retard. If anyone wants to play only Nuke with me, hit me up. Comments. Anyway, I've been No Thank You, and remember that one day everyone you know and you will die.